Nice. Okay, we're in. We're so in. We're so in. Let's go. We're so in.
Dear functional bros.
At least, what? How many of you? Type 1 in the chat if you're a functional bro. Do you identify as a functional bro right now? Type 1 in the chat. Go. Go. 1 in the chats. 1 in the chats. 1 in the chats. We got some ones. We definitely got some ones in here. In fact, YouTube, I'm going to let you go. Type 1 in the chat, YouTube. You're going to be a part of this video. I'm going to let you be a part of this video just this one time, okay? I want to see it. Man, see, YouTube, here's a little deal, people. Here's a little deal. Okay, I'm going to tell you, YouTube is always like, why don't you guys let us be on the chat more often? Let me tell you something. Do you see this right here? 770 concurrent viewers, 148 likes. You wonder why you're not going to be on the big screen? Now you know, okay? Now you know.
I see you.
I see you.
I hear you.
Yeah.
And I love you.
Oh,
Functional
damn.
programming is awesome, but functional programmers are bad marketers.
Oh, that is so good. Dude, these people are in shambles right now. That is so good. I mean, it's so true, though. The most annoying ones are just like, it's called. Like, dude, just know. You know for a fact that your programming language looks funny and it's hard for people to understand right away. You just, see, the thing is you only say that because, here's the thing is that you only say that because you just haven't done it. It's just like, okay, yeah, I haven't done catamorphic operations recently. Okay, granted.
Talking about currying, your monads, binding functors, so many words.
Yeah.
I'm not sure anyone truly understands what all these things mean.
By the way, this one, higher order functions, made my life miserable. In JavaScript, it's just like people just want currying to be a thing. They want higher order functions to be a thing. And like, I know you can construct it, but goodness gracious, please, the debuggability of those things are so effing annoying. Okay?
Because they really lie on some spectrum between the math of category theory, lambda calculus, and their specific mapping to different language implementations. But still, I do understand the beauty of it. The concept of a function is so pure. You have this elegant thing that takes an input and gives you an output. And no matter what, the same input always gives you the same output. The key thing that ensures that it gives you the same answer always for infinity is that there's no side effects. There's no state. No thing inside of the function that isn't directly derived by the input.
So beautiful.
Once you introduce state, the outcome of the function can vary based upon that state.
I understand why people love pure functions, right? This is it. Pick claps. Pick is clapping. Pick is in for this. Pick's like, yes. You tell them the glories. You tell them about categories.
Honestly, most programming paradigms are really just different takes on how you manage state.
Yeah.
It's all about state. So let's talk about what functional programming is, why it kind of sucks, but why adding a little bit to your code is awesome.
I like that intro. It's a good one.
Functional programming takes one extreme side of the state opinion. It's about writing programs based upon one core concept. There shall be no state. You have inputs which are
Pick, is that true? There shall be no state. There shall be no state. Isn't scan inherently, I forget what it's called. Fold left. Isn't fold left inherently naughty? I think scan is in RxJS. I can't remember. But you get your input is based on the previous one as well.
Transformed into outputs. In order to get stuff done, you compose and connect functions to other functions, hooking up their inputs and outputs together into one big long chain that achieves the goal of the program. But you don't.
Oh, damn, he passed a function in out of the function. That function just had a function. That function had a baby. Always not fun to debug.
Have objects or structures in memory that you mutate to track what's going on. In this absolute pure world, where you want to write functions with no state, this also means that you're not allowed to mutate variables. So this means if you were to set a value, you cannot change it again. This
Okay.
means conventional iteration loops like for and while are impossible. If you think about a for loop or while loop, it requires you to mutate some state, at least some variable that's tracking how many times you've iterated. So how do you do a loop in a pure functional way? The answer with functional programming is usually, well, more functions, when all you have is a hammer. This is the part that we want to repeat over and over again. So we'll just pull that part out to a function. So now we need to replicate the 3 parts of the for loop. The key thing that the for loop does is increment the index variable so that the body gets rerun with each index. So we need an equivalent of incrementing index and rerunning our body inside of process receipt. Since we can't mutate index, you can imagine us creating a new variable, next index, which contains the next index we want to process.
The answer's recursion.
But now we want to repeat this section again. So we'll need to call process receipt again. So now, if you were to call process receipt, let's say with an index of 2,
It's recursion.
it would print the merchant from index 2, then recall process receipt with index 3, then 4, etc.
Recursion, called it. I knew I was a genius. But he forgot his base case. His base case. The base case. Where the hell's the base case?
But as it is now, it'll keep calling the process receipt forever until it goes beyond the size of the receipt array, causing an error to be thrown.
Yep.
And this is where the second part of the for loop comes into play, the condition.
Yes.
We only want to execute the body if the condition is met. Otherwise, we do nothing and move on. So we'll move that condition down into our function.
I hate how this base case was done. I'm not going to lie to you. I hate how this base case was done because it's the inverse of the base case. But I understand he's doing it for the for loop, okay? I understand it's for the for loop, but I hate how it's done, okay? I just want to throw that out there.
Where we only do anything if our index is still in range. You can see when we run the program, it works like before. It increases the index beyond the size of the array, and we still call our function. But in this case, it fails our condition and we do nothing.
Yep.
This breaks the recursive loop and all our functions return. Recursion is just a fancier form of iteration. And finally, we have our last part of the for loop.
It's a fair take. Recursion is just a fancier form of iteration. Fair.
Which is where we set our starting point. This just represents our first call into our recursive loop. So now we've completely converted our loop to be done in the more functional way. We can also remove any unneeded variables to make our code more concise if we wanted. Okay, this is pretty simple and just logs each item in the loop.
Is this where we're about to get into higher order functions here? Is this where we're about to take this bad boy and create a for each? Are we creating a for each? Is this pre-watched? Have I pre-watched this with life experience?
But what if we wanted to do something useful, like finding all the receipts that belong to a particular user, and return them so they can be displayed elsewhere?
Damn it, I was wrong.
Well, we can take the user ID as a third parameter, and then check if the user matches. This now only prints the receipt of the merchant if the user ID matches. But instead, we want this function to return the list of matching receipts so that it can be displayed on the web
damn
app.
filter.
We
It's
need to
filter,
somehow
not for
return
each.
the results of the matching. At each recursive call, we want to make an array with the current receipt at the front and the results from the deeper calls attached to the end. This way we can get back everything in order, but we only want to append the current item if it has the right user ID. Otherwise, we just want to pass through the previous result. So in order to do this, we'll actually get the results of the deeper calls first. And then, if the user ID matches, we'll return the current results.
All right, here we go. We got this. We got this.
So in order to do this, we'll actually get the results of the deeper calls first. And then, if the user ID matches, we'll return the current results appended to the later results.
This is right where we froze. Let's go. Let's go. Okay, we're back in. We're so back in. We're so back. Just because my computer breaks. Just because every now and I don't know what happened, but this has happened twice now.
Otherwise, just forward on the later results as is. And lastly, if we've processed the entire list, we'll just return empty results since there's no more results to be had. So now, this function just returns all the receipts for a given user ID, and we'll give it a better name. Thing is, you can imagine this pattern happening over and over again whenever you wanted to find stuff in an array.
Yep.
The only difference between these functions is the condition in the if statement.
Yeah.
We could replace all 3 functions.
Your first problem is you're using JavaScript, okay? Just throwing that out there.
With just one, if we instead passed in a function that returned whether or not an item should be included. Let's pull out the condition and move it to its own function. And instead of taking the user ID as a parameter, we'll pass in that function instead. We can call it condition. Or if you want to be a classy fellow, you can call it predicate. Then we just call that function where the condition used to be. And that function tells us whether or not to include the item. Then we can pass our condition, the user ID equals function, into our filter. And if
look at this. Receipt, user ID. I see a bug. I currently see a bug, okay? I see a bug.
Of course, we can now rename our function to be a generic filter. Now we can run our beautiful program with our filter and user ID equals function, and wait, we have a problem. Our user ID equals function takes 2 parameters.
Okay. Code review, success. Okay, at least I'm paying attention, okay? Pre-watched, we're paying attention. We're paying attention here, people. Pre-watch.
and the
Pre-watched.
user ID to check against. But our filter
Easy
function
pre-watch.
only checks against the receipt itself.
Oh my goodness, we're about to get higher ordered, aren't we? We're about to get ourselves higher ordered functions, returning functions. I cannot wait.
We don't know the user ID to check against.
Yep.
We could try passing in another value that we could relay into the function. But what if we need more than one? Like in the case we needed to check if the total was between a range.
If only there was a
It
way
gets
to
a bit
do this.
awkward. So instead, we're going to get a bit fancy here. Instead of having our user ID equals function take both a receipt and a user ID, we're going to have it take only the user ID that we want to compare against. And it will construct and return a new function that takes a receipt and
Let's go! Gosh, I'm just fucking genius! Okay, I saw it coming like a mile away. This is great. This is great times right here. Clearly, definitely not pre-watched. Did not pre-watch this one, okay? I did not pre-watch this one. It's just, we're just here. Okay, we're just here. We're ready. We're ready. Okay, by the way, there's somebody in here that's saying, oh, why is bro yapping? Just get to the point. This is the point. Yo, dog, this is the point. Yeah, I'm a mod. Trust me, it's pre-watch. The guy doesn't even know. The Oracle legit? Okay, that is rude. Don't call me Oracle.
returns whether it's from the user ID. We then pass in that new function that's been created into our filter. This is a little weird, but what's happening is that the user ID is like a secret extra parameter, which is bound to the function.
Yeah.
And this function remembers that value and can use it.
Yeah.
The name for this pattern is called currying. Instead of handling the entire operation at once, it returns a function that handles the next part of the operation. The later part has the previous state bound to it. That new on-the-fly created function
Is this called currying? Isn't this a higher ordering? I'm getting so used to the old OCamls that I'm having a hard time visualizing this. Are you sure this is currying? I don't believe you guys. Give us the details. Is this currying? Yeah, that's currying. Is it? I thought currying was actually having them as arguments into the function. I thought that was binding, right? Because in the old OCaml world, if you have a function that takes in two parameters and you call it with one parameter, you get back that function that has the parameter pre-called onto it, but the function still gets two parameters. Yeah, currying equals partial application, exactly. This ain't partial application. There's no partially applying here. I don't think this is technically currying. I think you have to use bind, right? Like if you're doing the old JavaScripts, right? JS, and you had a function, right? A function of foo that took an A and B, and you wanted to like curry that son of a bitch. You'd go foo.bind, what is it, null1? And there we go. Bar now has been partially applied, right? So now I just go bar, 7, and we get the answer. What is bind? I'm sorry, dog. If you don't know what, he kind of just implemented bind in this video. I don't know. That's the same thing. I don't know if it's the same thing. I'm having a hard time believing it's the same thing. Because one's using a closure to pass objects, the other one's not using a closure. People still use bind? Of course they still use bind. Man invents language to create more language. I just wanna hear this thing. Okay. Words. I don't know. I don't believe it. I'm not believing things.
is what gets called when filter needs to check a condition.
Can I get banned? You can, Warren. You can get banned. You can come straight over to my house and I'll ban you so good. Baby.
This is what's a bit funny to me, because functional programming is supposed to be so different than object-oriented programming. But by binding data like this, we're creating an instance of a function with some bound data to work with.
Yep.
Instead of creating an instance of a data
It's
object
just a read-only
with
class.
its bound functions. Currying like this is a bit of an older way of doing this. You can automate this in JavaScript and many other languages by using bind.
I'm not saying it's pre-watched.
I won't go into bind fully here because really the way we want to do this today is to use lambda functions. This is where we'll move our equals check right into an inline function. Now this is finally where things start to get kind of nice. I'm filtering by user now. Or I can filter by merchant just like this. Or do a more complex check on the total here. We might want to get just the filtered merchant names instead of the entire object. If we devise a new function based upon our loop that doesn't filter based upon a condition, but instead takes a function that gives you the desired result for each element, we insert that new transformed element into the array instead. We'll call this function map, because it maps each element to a different thing.
Damn.
Then we can chain these together. So first,
By the way, I'm so offended by the use of concat. I just want you to know that this is just like offensive to me in JavaScript. Okay, this is all right. I'm a functional bro. This is just, I feel so upset about this.
we get our list of receipts. Find the ones with a total between 14 and 20, and then just say for each, give us the merchant name. So now we get an array of the merchant strings instead of the full receipt objects at the end.
Iterators.
And if we only wanted to take the first
I just want monads and iterators. That's all I want. Never mind. We're not going
5
to get into
items, we could write a function called take. Take would give
Let's
us
go.
up to the count elements from the array.
Love take.
We can chain that on as well.
I love
So now
take.
you can see that we basically created a data pipeline here, where we have an input state, we filter it down to what we want, map the types of the values to what we want, and then take the first 5 to display.
I love take, by the
Our
way.
code clearly declares what we want to happen, and all the complexity of how this is done is behind the scenes in our fundamental functions. So we've just derived these functional style fundamentals ourselves.
In fact, I love take so much. A fun little thing. Fun little thing here, people. Look at that. Little take right here. Take. Little skip and take here. Huh? Little skip and take. We're doing ourselves a little bit of a skip, a little bit of a take, okay? If you can't handle it, you can't handle it, okay?
But these are also built directly into JavaScript. So let's take a look at how to use those to create data pipelines. But first,
LTake.
what's our goal with these receipts? We have this amazing new startup idea that solves a uniquely American problem in an American way.
I love
In
it.
the US,
I love it. Yes, come on, let's go. Let's go. American problem, American way. What are we solving?
when you're in a restaurant, you need to fill a tip manually by writing the tip in total. This is effectively a mandatory fee on your meal enforced by social shaming. Your card is initially charged for the total.
Dude, people, I recently went to a kiosk that was self-automated and it asked for a tip. That shit's wild, okay? You're telling me that I'm supposed to tip myself and then give you that tip? Dude, it's criminal. I'm starting to get upset. I tip just because the only reason why I tip is because I worked a lot of shitty restaurant jobs. I don't feel good about it.
Without the tip. But several days later, the updated total with your hand-scribbled tip will show up on your credit card. The problem here is that no one is really going to check whether their tip was accurately reported when their transaction was settled. So in theory, a company or disgruntled service staff could simply enter a bigger number, taking more of your money. Are you worried about losing your hard-earned money to restaurant credit card fraud? Black Sky Financial finds these small, family-owned mom-and-pop restaurants and sues them for everything they have. The proceeds from the destruction of people's dreams are then equitably distributed to you, the user of the app, based upon how many receipts you've submitted. Sign up today and start submitting receipts and know that you're helping prevent credit card fraud in your community, one lawsuit at a time. So yeah.
This is so good. This is honestly the greatest thing I've ever seen in my entire lifetime. The real American way. You think Egyptians sued people a lot? They sued dead people, by the way, just so you know. They sued dead people. But
To pull this off, we basically need to grab each receipt, look up the transaction in the user's connected credit card accounts, filter out the transactions that haven't yet settled, or whose totals match correctly, sort them by the most egregious discrepancy, and then take the top 10. Then we display them in a dashboard so our army of lawyers can get to work, fighting the good fight.
let's go.
Here's that code written in a procedural way. Let's change this to the functional approach. In modern JavaScript, all the methods that we need are already built in, and are also methods directly on arrays. For each receipt, we eventually want this result object that contains all of the relevant information.
I love that sorts the array in place, but also returns the array so that you think that you got a different one. I love that. And now we have two sorted, which gives you a new one. And we have sorted
The receipt, the final transaction, and the discrepancy. So we can just map our receipts to that.
But nothing's better than reverse. I can tell you that I've seen so many people get owned by reverse. Even Theo recently got owned by reverse. Oh man, he was talking about a bug he had in Ping, like, weeks ago or years ago, 2 years ago, a year and a half ago. Got owned by reverse. Reverse is such a good one. I love the fact that they exist and they just shoot people in the foot all the time. They're so good. They're so good.
We can use the built-in map
I got
method
owned by
on
reverse
our
yesterday.
array to
Let's
transform the array into
Let's
our
go.
list of objects. The map method
You're not a real front-end developer if you haven't spent 30 minutes getting owned by reverse, okay?
takes a lambda function for transforming our receipts into those result objects. This condition is skipping over the transactions that aren't yet settled, or don't have a difference between the receipt total and the final total on the transaction. So we can just change this to a filter.
Okay.
We'll need to inverse the condition since it now describes what to keep instead of what to ignore. This code basically just ensures
But this also assumes that you have the original total entered in. How do you know you have the original total entered in? Okay, I don't even know if Black Sky Financial could be real. What are they using? ChatGPT to analyze the receipts to ensure that the receipts are correctly done? Is the mom and pop shop even using ChatGPT? I don't even know. Okay, there's questions about this startup all of a sudden. I don't know if I believe it anymore.
that the list is sorted from biggest to smallest. So we can replace this with a sort on our filtered list. The sort takes a function that tells the sort function how two elements should be ordered. It gives you two items and asks for a negative number if A is less than B, and a positive
B
if A
minus
is
A,
greater
people.
than B. You typically
that
get this
inverted
by
list.
subtracting B from A. But since we want things ordered big first, we'll flip this and subtract A from B.
Pre-watched. That's pre-watched right there, people. That right there is pre-watched. Did you see that? I called the future. I looked into the future and saw it and called it, okay? Mind in the game, people. You got to get your mind in the game when you're watching these videos, okay? If you're not pre-watching it by watching it live, you're not in the game. You're not in the game.
And then we only want count number of elements, which we can get with the slice method, which we were already doing here. So we'll just add that into our pipeline.
Nice.
And voila. After we make the formatting a bit more pretty, all of that is written only in 12 lines.
Nothing is better than debugging these type of... don't you love debugging these type of statements? Isn't this just like the funnest thing ever? Don't you just love it? Like, it's just so much fun. You get to go in there and hope you get it right, you know? It's not that bad. Yes, it is bad because you have to edit code to debug it properly. You have to like break these into multiple statements, erase the return, create a bunch of const along the way. Which part is actually failing? It's not fun. They're not like iterators. See, iterators are different than this. Iterators pull out a value all the way through. So you can actually see a value go through and it's a little bit easier to breakpoint. Whereas these aren't iterators. They don't pull a value all the way through. They pull everything at once. So you do all the maps at once. Then you do all the filters at once. And then you do the sort. And then you do the slice. And so it just comes out so effing annoying.
Lines.
It's just the
Functional
worst.
programming lets you rewrite things into a beautiful pipeline for your data. And honestly, most of programming jobs are really just taking data from source A, doing some transformation, filtering, and sorting, and then putting it in place B. A lot of the time, we're just sophisticated plumbers. If you'd like to try out some functional programming like this, I put some experiments on my website accessible through my Patreon. I give you some procedural code and ask you to change it so it doesn't use any for loops or while loops. If you're curious, check them out at codeaesthetic.io.
Oh, we even blurred it
Dear
out.
functional bros, sometimes I feel like you focus on the complexity and mathematical elegance of functional programming, instead of explaining why it's awesome and help others see how useful parts of it can be. Maybe we need a special FPro signal to let others know that you're also a secret FPro. Then you can talk about FPro things like monads. But if you don't get the signal, we can play chill and talk about how nice it is to delete for loops. Pure functional programming.
Give me, who's my F boys? Where's my F boys at? I feel like they describe us with having Haskell brains. Where's my F boys at? You know, I'm not gonna lie to you. F boys has this particular sound that sounds like another type of F boy. F boys represent F boys. Oh man, there's something weird about that one.
Where you cannot mutate any state or have any side effects. It's kind of awful.
Yeah.
The issue is it's fake. Computers fundamentally have state. I mean, literally
Yeah.
the whole von Neumann architecture is where you have one giant state in memory, and then little instructions which mutate that state to get stuff done. Input is non-deterministic, and any output is forcing some side effect. Pure functional programming is still mostly academic. But what has been happening is the best parts of functional programming have been extracted and injected into our most popular languages. Like always, balance is key, and adopting some of the principles, like reducing state programming, have been...
All my homies hate comprehensions, okay? All the homies hate comprehensions. Just saying it. Just saying it. When someone tries to go like 2-3 deep on comprehensions, I just want to throat punch them. Shit's annoying when you go double deep on a comprehension. Okay, I just hate it. Okay, I just hate it. I want you to know that now. Tej loves comprehension. Of course, Tej does. Of course he does. TJ just loves everything. Okay, he's like the most positive and kind person ever, and I absolutely hate him for it.
extracted and injected into our most popular languages. Like always, balance is key, and adopting some of the principles, like reducing state and formulating data pipelines in your programs where it makes sense, can bring huge benefit, but without all the crazy restrictiveness. And I'd expect more of these patterns to become more common. Massively parallel systems don't rely on using one big state of memory. The more cores you throw at something, the more tracking your state of memory and elsewhere becomes a bottleneck.
You know, the best part is you have all these functions set up and everything looks really great, and at the very bottom, there's a hash map with a mutex on it. Like, we all know what's going to happen, okay? You think, oh, I'm a functional program. I'm just so good at functional programming. Yeah, I hear you. Nice mutex hash map, okay? Nice.
So who knows? Maybe pure functional programming will have a new renaissance.
Every time. By the way, I've been trying to experiment using a multi-producer single consumer on in Rust and piping that into a hash map instead of the old Arc Mutex. It's been pretty good. It's been pretty good. I've been happy about that. I've been trying to get really good on the old like I'm trying to step up my game. You know what I mean? I've been trying to step up my Rust game. I've read through the Rust Atomics and Locks book, feeling a little bit more confident, trying to just step it up. I'm still stuck on Tokyo. Not gonna lie to you guys, I'm still stuck on Tokyo. I'm still stuck doing multi-threading, controlling how many things run at once via like a context semaphore that I pass around. I really wish I was better, but I'm not. I'm not better. Okay, I'm not better. I wish I was better, but I'm not better. It makes me sad. But I really do like just having a semaphore. What's that semaphore? Well, it's for helping me make only 8 to 12 requests at a time so that I don't get a nice, nasty Slack message from my coworker asking why do I have 100 Mongo queries going at once to their dev-only database. That MacBook Mini is about to get pounded if I don't use that semaphore, okay? That MacBook Mini about to go to Pound Town. The name. Pound Town MacBook Mini. That's what they call me, okay? A Jen.